Heceta Head Lighthouse, a beacon of light, loss and legend. Perched dramatically atop a rugged bluff overlooking the turbulent waters of the Pacific Ocean, the Heceta Head Lighthouse stands as one of the most iconic and photogenic lighthouses in the United States. Located just north of Florence, Oregon, Heceta Head has guided countless mariners to safety since its first beam pierced the coastal fog in 1894. But beyond its architectural elegance and coastal utility lies a deeper, more complex story, one that encompasses historical significance, human perseverance, devastating tragedies, and chilling tales of the supernatural. Situated along a particularly treacherous stretch of the Oregon coast, Heceta Head was chosen for its high vantage point, approximately 205 feet above sea level. Mariners in the 19th century faced perilous conditions, rocky shores, sudden storms, and an almost perpetual shroud of fog made navigation difficult and often deadly. The US Lighthouse Board, recognizing this danger, selected Heceta Head as the ideal site to install a new aid to navigation one that would bridge the visibility gap between Yaquina Head to the north and Cape Arago to the south. The location was not only chosen for its visibility range, but also its proximity to Heceta Bank, an underwater geological feature named after Spanish explorer Bruno de Heceta. This bank created complex tidal currents that further necessitated reliable navigation aids. Once operational, the Heceta Head Light's Fresnel lens, an engineering marvel imported from France, projected light 21 miles out to sea, becoming one of the strongest lights on the Oregon coast. Construction of the Heceta Head Lighthouse began in 1892 and was completed in 1894. Materials were transported via a combination of wagons, barges and mules due to the site's inaccessibility. The construction involved not just the lighthouse itself, but also the keeper's residence, oil house, and ancillary buildings. The 56-foot tower was designed with an ornate iron staircase and crowned with a first-order Fresnel lens consisting of over 1,000 glass prisms. Italian glass artisans crafted this lens, and it required extreme care during installation. The nearby keeper's house was built as a duplex to accommodate the head keeper and his assistants, with enough room to support their families during long, stormy winters. The isolation and harshness of the environment made construction a formidable task. Workers battled not only the natural terrain, but also inclement weather, accidents, and disease. One laborer reportedly died after falling from scaffolding during construction, an early tragedy that foreshadowed the human costs associated with life at Heceta Head. Despite the best efforts of the keepers, several shipwrecks occurred near Heceta Head, especially before the lighthouse was completed. Even after the light became operational, fog and misjudgment continued to lead to disaster. Among the most notable was the wreck of the schooner Marielle in 1903, which slammed into the rocky cliffs below the light during a fierce storm. Though some crew members survived, others perished in the surf. Locals reported finding bodies and debris along the shoreline in the days that followed. Other tragedies occurred on land. Children of lighthouse staff died from illness and injury, and a young girl, believed by some to be the spirit known as Rue, is said to have died tragically at or near the keeper's residence. Whether she fell from the bluff, drowned, or succumbed to disease remains a matter of debate. During World War II, the lighthouse took on a strategic role in the defense of the West Coast. The Coast Guard patrolled the area, and spotters were stationed nearby to watch for Japanese submarines. Barbed wire and other defensive structures were added to the area, and access to the lighthouse became restricted. This militarization strained the already tough lives of the keepers and their families. Civilians were required to follow strict blackout regulations, and the looming threat of invasion or sabotage made life at Heceta Head even more isolating and anxiety-ridden. Although the lighthouse itself was never attacked, Several ships along the Oregon coast were torpedoed by Japanese submarines, and the constant threat kept tensions high throughout the war years. As maritime technology advanced through the 20th century, the role of traditional lighthouse keepers diminished. In 1963, the Heceta Head Lighthouse was automated, and the US Coast Guard ceased manning the station. The once bustling keeper's house fell silent, and the human presence that had maintained the beacon for nearly 70 years vanished overnight. Automation brought with it efficiency, but also an eerie emptiness. The Fresnel lens was updated to use electric lighting, and the weight-driven mechanism once wound by hand was replaced by automatic systems. The Coast Guard continued routine maintenance, but the lighthouse became a shadow of its former self, functioning, yet haunted by the absence of its caretakers. In the years following automation, natural decay and vandalism began to threaten the structural integrity of the buildings. Without a constant human presence, the remote site became vulnerable. Preservation efforts were eventually launched to protect this cultural treasure from falling into ruin. As with many isolated and historic locations, Heceta Head Lighthouse became the focus of supernatural speculation. Stories of unexplained sounds, ghostly figures, and a strong emotional presence began to surface shortly after the lighthouse was automated and abandoned by its keepers. Guests and staff at the bed and breakfast began reporting strange events. Doors closing by themselves, footsteps echoing in empty hallways, and cold spots in specific rooms. Items would be found moved or missing, only to reappear later in odd locations. These unexplained phenomena laid the foundation for Heceta Head's haunted reputation. Skeptics argue that the isolation and historical atmosphere create suggestibility, but others believe the spirits of those who once lived and died at Heceta Head have never truly left. Among these spectral residents, one name stands out more than any other: Rue. Among the many tales of the paranormal connected to the Heceta Head Lighthouse, none is more poignant, mysterious, or enduring than the legend of Rue, a maternal spirit said to haunt the keeper's house overlooking the Pacific Ocean. Described by many witnesses as a grieving woman in old-fashioned attire, Rue's presence has been reported by guests, caretakers, investigators, and even skeptics who left the lighthouse with more questions than answers. But who exactly was Rue? And why does her spirit linger at Heceta Head? While the exact identity of Rue has never been definitively confirmed, a compelling story has grown around her, fueled by personal accounts, historical records, and decades of whispered lore. The story most often told is that Rue was once the wife of a lighthouse keeper or assistant keeper during the early 1900s. Some versions say she lived in the upper portion of the two-family duplex that once housed the staff, while others claim she was the head keeper's wife. Regardless of the details, nearly all tellings agree on one central tragedy. Rue lost her young daughter under mysterious or tragic circumstances. The specifics of the daughter's death vary depending on the source. One account suggests that the child wandered too close to the edge of the cliff near the lighthouse and fell to her death on the rocks below. Another version claims the little girl drowned in the ocean while playing too near the tide pools unsupervised. There's even speculation that the child succumbed to illness during one of the harsh winters, when medical assistance was days or weeks away due to the remote and storm-battered location. According to legend, Rue was inconsolable after the loss of her daughter. In her grief, she is said to have spent days wandering the property, calling her child's name, searching the bluff, beach, and surrounding forest. Eventually, the weight of her sorrow became too much to bear. Some say she died of a broken heart. Others claim she took her own life. In either case, the emotional energy tied to that moment of devastating loss is believed by many to have anchored her spirit to the location for eternity. Adding a layer of eerie authenticity to the tale is the presence of an unmarked grave near the keeper's house. Some believe this is the final resting place of Rue's daughter, though official records remain unclear. The grave, a simple depression in the earth marked only by a ring of mossy stones, has drawn the curiosity of countless visitors and ghost hunters. There is some historical backing to the presence of children living at Heceta Head. Census records from the early 20th century show that keepers often brought their families with them to the isolated station. Several young children are recorded as living on site at various points, and the keeper's logs occasionally make note of minor injuries or illnesses among them. Unfortunately, medical documentation from the era was sparse, and many deaths, especially those of children in remote areas, went unreported or were documented locally without being forwarded to larger municipal archives. While no definitive proof of Rue's existence has surfaced, the convergence of oral history, physical evidence, and atmospheric consistency has given the legend a strong foothold in the cultural identity of Heceta Head. One of the most compelling aspects of Rue's haunting is the remarkable consistency in eyewitness reports. From the 1970s onward, caretakers and guests of the keeper's house, now operating as a bed and breakfast, have described similar encounters with a ghostly woman. She is most frequently seen on the second floor or in the attic. Witnesses describe a tall woman wearing a long grey or blue dress, often with lace or Victorian-era detailing. Her presence is often accompanied by a chill in the air, the scent of roses or sea air, and an overwhelming sense of sorrow. Several guests have awoken in the middle of the night to the feeling of someone sitting gently on the edge of their bed. Others have heard soft weeping, footsteps pacing in the hallways, or doors creaking open and closed without explanation. Staff members have reported finding rooms inexplicably rearranged, chairs moved, blankets turned down, or doors that were locked at night found wide open by morning. On at least one occasion, a housekeeper claimed to have seen a woman's face in the mirror behind her as she was cleaning, only to turn and find the room empty. Perhaps the most famous and chilling Rue encounter occurred during renovations in the 1990s, when workers were hired to restore the attic space. The lead contractor, an otherwise skeptical man, reported that every time his crew entered the attic, they felt watched. Tools went missing, only to be found later in strange places, like on the front porch or buried in the ground outside. Workers began refusing to go up to the attic alone. One afternoon, a carpenter attempting to remove an old cabinet was suddenly struck by an intense sense of dread. Before he could finish unscrewing the last hinge, the air around him grew cold, and the cabinet door swung shut on its own with such force that it fractured the frame. He left the house immediately and refused to return. Shortly after this, a psychic medium was invited to investigate the space. According to her report, she sensed a powerful presence, a grieving woman who begged, silently, for help finding her daughter. The psychic reported that Rue did not wish to harm anyone. She was merely searching, confused, and tethered to the home by intense sorrow. Unlike the vengeful spirits of horror fiction, Rue is widely regarded as a gentle, maternal entity. Many believe she watches over the property rather than haunts it. Guests have described feeling tucked in at night or reassured by an invisible presence during storms. Others speak of Rue as a protective figure, one who means no harm, only longs for closure. Because of this, staff members and regular guests often talk to her out loud, greeting her when entering rooms or saying goodnight before bed. Some even leave small offerings, such as fresh flowers, toys, or notes addressed to Rue and her daughter. These acts seem to calm the house's energy, and those who treat the spirit with kindness report peaceful stays. Rue's legend has become a cornerstone of Heceta Head's identity in the world of paranormal tourism. She has been featured in travel documentaries, books about haunted locations, and podcasts about ghost lore. Some television series, such as Ghost Adventures and The Dead Files, have investigated the site or cited Rue's story in broader episodes about haunted lighthouses. Her story has also been adapted into fictional form in local theatre productions, short stories, and even poetry. She represents a unique blend of documented hardship and imaginative storytelling, a ghost story rooted not in horror, but in tragedy and deep maternal love. Of course, not everyone believes in Rue. Skeptics argue that the environment at Heceta Head, a historic, isolated building surrounded by fog, crashing waves, and creaking wood, naturally lends itself to ghost stories. The power of suggestion, sleep deprivation, and the mind's ability to find patterns in randomness all contribute to the phenomenon, according to psychological experts. However, even some skeptics admit to experiencing strange sensations during overnight stays. One self-proclaimed non-believer who stayed at the B&B in 2017 later wrote in a blog post, "I don't believe in ghosts, but I swear something sat on my bed that night. I was wide awake. There was no explanation." It's this grey area between belief and disbelief that keeps Rue's story alive. It invites reflection not just on the supernatural, but on the powerful emotions that linger in places touched by grief, love, and loss. Whether ghost or legend, Rue has become an inseparable part of the Heceta Head experience. She represents the human cost of lighthouse life, its isolation, its hardships, and its heartaches. Her story invites empathy and respect, reminding us that behind every beam of light is a story, often invisible, yet profoundly felt. Visitors who come in search of Rue may leave with more than a chilling tale. They leave with a glimpse into the emotional legacy of Heceta Head Lighthouse, a place where sorrow still echoes in the halls, and love refuses to be forgotten. Numerous paranormal investigators have attempted to document Rue's presence and the other strange happenings at Heceta Head. Organizations such as Oregon Paranormal and Northwest Ghost Tours have conducted overnight vigils with audio, video, and electromagnetic field detection equipment. One particularly notable investigation recorded unexplained electromagnetic spikes in the attic, where Rue is most often seen. Electronic voice phenomena sessions reportedly captured whispers and a faint female voice calling out the name Anna, which some believe may be the name of Rue's lost child. Guests who stay overnight in the keeper's house frequently write about their experiences in journals provided by the inn. Some entries describe dreams of drowning, visions of a woman in mourning dress, or the inexplicable sense of being watched. These consistent themes have convinced many that there is something more than legend at play. Skeptics continue to offer rational explanations, creaking floorboards, drafts, or the power of suggestion, but the sheer volume and consistency of accounts make the Heceta Head Lighthouse one of the most haunted lighthouses in America. Today, Heceta Head Lighthouse serves multiple roles: historical landmark, working aid to navigation, bed and breakfast, and paranormal hotspot. It is one of the most visited lighthouses on the Pacific coast, drawing thousands of tourists annually. Visitors can explore the lighthouse tower, stroll the scenic trails of Cape Perpetua, or book a stay in the allegedly haunted keeper's quarters. Interpretive tours offered by the US Forest Service provide insights into both the architectural history and ghostly lore of the site. Special events, including ghost storytelling nights, historical reenactments, and community festivals, keep the lighthouse culturally relevant. Preservation remains a priority. Local non-profits and volunteers work diligently to maintain the site's historic integrity while promoting environmental stewardship. Partnerships with universities and historical societies also provide research opportunities into the maritime history of the Oregon coast. The balance of tourism, history, and folklore has created a multifaceted identity for Heceta Head. It is no longer just a lighthouse. It is a living symbol of coastal heritage, community engagement, and mysterious beauty. Heceta Head Lighthouse is more than stone and steel. It is a guardian of stories, some written in historical archives, others whispered in the wind that rushes through the pines and over the sea. From its strategic inception to its modern-day role as a historic and haunted landmark, Heceta Head has witnessed the full spectrum of human experience: birth and death, joy and sorrow, light and shadow. Its tragic accidents remind us of the price paid by those who kept the light burning through the ages. Its paranormal legends offer a connection to those whose presence may linger still, bound by emotion and memory. And its history, steeped in craftsmanship, endurance, and coastal lore, continues to inspire all who visit its windswept cliffs. As the beam from the Fresnel lens still cuts through the darkness each night, Heceta Head remains a watchful eye on the past, present, and perhaps even the afterlife. Whether you come for the view, the history, or the ghost stories, you leave with the sense that this lighthouse is very much alive,